Okay, I suppose we are live already.
Oh, not yet. We will say we are live. I will tell you now.
Okay, we are live. Good evening, everybody. I'm really pleased to have this, to host this joint event between NBU and the City College Europe campus of University of York. And today, actually, we have a fantastic speaker. This is Professor Manousos Klados from the City College campus of University of York. He's professor in psychology, but actually he is a mathematician with PhD in neuroscience with many specializations in different types of neuroscience, developmental, neurofeedback that actually he's going to talk about today. And I think also he has a lot of experience in data processing, especially electrophysiological data processing and pre-processing, of course. He has received many awards, and he has worked on many European and other projects. He's currently a principal investigator in several projects, one of which is related to processing of EEG signals and automatically detecting specific patterns of oscillations to detect pathological waveforms and high frequency oscillations. So please, Manousos, the floor is yours to...
Thank you very much for your introduction. Nice to meet you also. So today we are going to speak about neurofeedback and NASA technology. Let me share you my presentation one moment. Can you see my presentation? I think you can. Okay, fantastic. As I said, we are going to see about neurofeedback, which is a NASA technology that invented accidentally by NASA, and gradually we tend to we use it for therapeutic purposes nowadays. But before going into that, let's start from the beginning to make a let's say more smoother introduction to neurofeedback, and let's talk a bit about neuroplasticity in let's say in very simple terms. As any organ in our, let's say, body, like also the brain, develops as we get older, and especially the major part of the brain development becomes even from the day one of our birth until, let's say, we get adults. And here you can see actually how's the day when we are in the fetus, and how after the days passes, before the birth, it has developed and have, let's say, all the gyrus and sulcus that we know and we expect to see in mammalian brain. The same happens also with the main units of the brain, which are the neurons, and they start from neuroblast. And as you can see, they start to expand. Let me use a laser, a pointer. Can you see the pointer in my screen? Okay, fantastic. So you see that they start from a small neuroblast that starts. The neuroblast starts to extend the axons, and then in the next step, these axons start to let's say go to different directions. And when this in the, let's say, in the completely developed phase, a neuron has a lot of functions that goes to every direction and connects with other neurons in order to transmit the messages and the pulse, the electrical pulses in the brain, so as the brain to bear the, let's say, the functionality that it should. Here also you can see a very nice image about how is the cortical columns, how dense and how they become dense from the beginning, from the day 0 until 2 years old, and you see how much we have the neurogeneration in the first 2 years. Now, the neuroplasticity. What is the neuroplasticity? What has to do with all this? What we mean neuroplasticity, neuroscience, is that the ability that the brain has, our nervous system has, either the autonomous nervous system as the central nervous system and the peripheral, let's say that, to undergo changes in anatomical, chemical, physiological, and functional properties. Here we can see a nice image of the gray matter volume according to the place, where we have here 0 until 0.5 volume from 5 years old to 20 years old, and we see how the gray matter changes during from the let's say young kids to young adults. Also here we have noticed that not only the brain changes, but also we see that what comes with the brain also changes during this year, during the maturation and the development. And this has to do with the sensor pathways, which has to do with the vision, with the hearing, with the smelling, sensing, and so on. And this is the first one that comes in their peak, because these are the most let's say useful functions for our survival and for the further development of young, let's say, human. Then it comes the language, which gets their peak around 7 to 8 years old, and this also has a, let's say, a developmental meaning, because in this age we need to develop further other functions and other, let's say, specialities that require the communication between us. And the most important thing is because humans are social, let's say, animals. Language is, let's say, the most crucial mean of socialization and the formation of communities and so on. And afterwards, we have a peak on the cognitive functions, where actually you may have heard that the brain of the kids are like a sponge. They take everything, they process everything very quickly, and they remember everything. And this is due to this adaptation. Another very good example of neuroplasticity is the studies from Merzenich. What we see here, let me explain. Here we see the brain of an old monkey, and here actually we see the somatosensory cortex. And here in this small, here we have the stripe of the somatosensory cortex, and here this small piece is a hand representation. Here we have the normal hand representation, where where each part of this stripe has to do with the fingers: the first finger, the second finger, third finger, fourth finger, and fifth finger. Okay. Now I will say something that's a bit bad. This monkey lost his third finger, and what we see is that 2 months after the third finger was, let's say, cutted, that the place that the third finger in the cortex that has, let's say, this area that was for the third finger was occupied by the second and the fourth finger. So they become even more, let's say, and also you can see the first and the fifth have grown. So the sense, let's say, on the other fourth finger were increased, and the area that is associated with the sensory, the execution and sensory of the third finger is missed. Here I have some I don't want to go into many details about the underlying mechanism of neuroplasticity, because to be honest, I don't know exactly also our audience who listen to us. But in general terms, we can say that the neuroplasticity is the change in balance of excitation and inhibition of responses. And and if you consider also the behavioral approach when we use psychology, in the behavioral approach, what we do when we give a positive feedback, we increase the probability of having the behavior that we rewarded. When we punish something, a behavior, then we decrease the probability of this behavior to appear again. Something similar happens to the brain, but this happening, as we say, when we reward something, what we actually do is that we strengthening the existing synapses, so we have a long-term potentiation, while on the reversed scenario, when we punish behavior, what we have actually, we have weakening of the synapses through the long-term depression, actually. So this behavioral model is based on the neuronal, let's say, layer. It's based on neuroplasticity. Okay. Now, before, since we discovered a bit about neuroplasticity and we say that we understand how and why the brain changes, let's say some things about the quantitative EEG. Probably you have heard already about EEG, the electroencephalography. The quantitative EEG is nothing more than EEG, than a method of quantify it's a quantification of EEG, which produces, let's say, precise and reproducible. This is the key word: reproducible estimates of deviation of individual record from normality. Actually, how we record QEEGs using 19 electrodes, as you can see here, placed according to the 1020 international system that covers almost all the head, and we record the brain activity from these areas. In QEEG, very, very important is the normality. And when we say the normality, I mean the statistical normality, so the normal distribution. The normal distribution is just the distribution of a random variable, let's say that, where most of the values, let me show you this, let's say, figure. When we have, for example, a random variable that has different values, here it's, let's say, most of the values will be around the mean value. And as we get away from the mean value, then the percentage of the values we have tend to be lower and lower and lower. We know from the statistics that here we have the one standard deviation, two standard deviations, three standard deviations from the mean, and the same from this side. We know that the percentage of the data that are between the -1 standard deviation and +1 standard deviation is 68%, while the percentage of the values that are between -2 standard deviations and 2 standard deviation are around 95%. And from here, which is -2.58 until +2.58 standard deviations away from the mean, we have the 99% of the values. So consider something and how we can, let's say, mix that with neurofeedback and QEEG. Consider that we record 1,000 people, a QEEG from 1,000 people from in a resting state, let's say, in eyes open or eyes closed condition. Then we can have 1,000 random variables for the power of the EEG activity of a brain, a wave or whatever, in a specific location. Then having this, forming that normal distribution, we can check if we record another one, where in this distribution lies, okay, according to the Z-score. If it's around here, we say that, okay, it's something typical, it's something expected. But if we find this characteristic to be on the tails of the normal distribution here or here, then this may be linked with some pathophysiology behind, okay? And actually, you see here, for example, I made some plots about this. Actually, this is the Z-score of the delta brainwave, theta, alpha, beta, and high beta. And you can see now, for example, that this person has, in the low frequencies in delta and theta brainwaves, on the left part, lateralization, as we say, that has increased activity on these brain waves compared to our database, to our normative database. And this peak has become extremely significant in the center, in alpha band mostly, and this has to do actually, and this person was with depressive symptoms, and this pattern has to do with depression. Here, as we said already, in order to compare, we have these normative databases, which is actually statistical maps of normal functioning brains. And as you can see here, this is a typical profile of depressive people, where we see that we have on the right frontal lobe an increased activity of the alpha brain waves. And I don't know if there is a theory that's proved already that we have the frontal alpha symmetry that is linked with negative and positive emotions. Okay, when the alpha power, let's say, is increased on the left brain, then this is indicative of a person that is suffering of depressive symptoms, or at least, let's say, this person has a negative mood that time that we record the EEG. Now, here are some studies about QEEG that found and connected also with ADHD and so on, which, let me tell you, for neurofeedback, ADHD is the flag pathology that comes also from the American Pediatric Association as the level 1, let's say, solution before pharmaceutical treatment. And actually there are studies in ADHD which prove that neurofeedback has the same effects with the medicines, and actually a bit better effects, because it has longer effects than the medicine. So telling all this, the main question here is, can we change these patterns? Okay, because if you see the pathophysiology, these patterns didn't arise from one day to another. They were developed there and stabilized because the homeostasis was changed and so on. So the main question here is, can we reverse these patterns? Can we somehow reverse what we see in the statistical maps? And if we manage to reverse it, will this have an impact on the behavioral level? Will we have, let's say, symptoms relief or something like that? And here, these questions are going to be answered from neurofeedback. And as I say, neurofeedback was accidentally founded by NASA on early 70s from Barry Sterman and his famous cats, let's say that. Let me tell you the story very, very shortly. NASA had a problem before 50 years because a fuel that they used for their rockets, it was very toxic and produced epileptic seizure in the pilots and in the astronauts. On a different story, in a nearby, let's say, lab, one NASA scientist was studying neurofeedback in some cats, and he used actually the sensory motor training, which is a training of the brain activity on 12 and 15 hertz. So accidentally, I think, if the story is what I know is true, accidentally one cat was by mistake taken inside the rocket, and what actually they noticed is that this cat hasn't any epileptic seizure. So they asked themselves why and so on, and they found that let's say, the most what was important then was the neurofeedback that made the brain of the cat more resistant to epileptic seizures. And from this point, they started to, let's say, to study more the neurofeedback. So first of all, let's answer and give a definition of what is neurofeedback. Neurofeedback, as we can say, is a direct training of the brain function in order to normalize its performance. Let me tell you something. We do neurofeedback in many ways. For example, the psychoanalytic, for example, approach, or the psychotherapy, actually tries to change our views, for example, of a topic by discussing with let's say how to say that, the counselor that discusses with the patient, for example, and tries to change actually these brain patterns using conversation and different views that produce reversed pattern on the brain. And if they are repeated and we stabilize this notion inside the mind of the patient, this reversed activity will become more stable, and then we will have the healing effects. However, in neurofeedback, we use something that is more direct, and we record the brain activity, and we record the, I cannot say harmful, but the property that is mainly linked with the pathophysiology that we are examining. And we try to change that based on neuroplasticity and rewarding system, by giving a reward to a subject directly when we see the desired activity on the brain signals, or punishment where we see something that's not wanted in the brain signals. Here you can see actually a typical, let's say, system, your feedback system, where here we have the patient, where we record the EEG signals, and using some algorithms, these signals are translated into a feedback that can be, for example, for a game. The most typical game, for example, that I use for kids is either a rally, where the rally accelerates as close as we are in the wanted brain activity, in the targeted brain activity, and slows down as away as we are from the wanted activity. So the kid, the kid's brain, actually, not the kid per se, the brain of the kid, by trying to adapt and get more rewards, the brain adapts to what we need. And if we have a lot of repetition after 20 or 30 sessions, we see that these patterns are stabilized. And actually, in many cases, let me say, we have also, how to say that, links in the behavioral level, something that is the most wanted. So where neurofeedback is used for? Neurofeedback is used on anxiety disorders, mood disorders, eating disorders, ADHD, which is the flagship of neurofeedback. It can be used, and I have used in addiction, in sleep disorders, in traumatic brain injuries, and much more. Now, regarding the depression, here, as we said before, here it's a typical example of depression. Now we will show you two cases, one for depression and one for ADHD. Here we can see the electrophysiological pattern of a depressed person. This, as I told you before, the depressive people have increased left alpha activity on the prefrontal region. Here, for example, in this region, we have they have increased activity, the people that suffer from depression. And what we actually want is, with neurofeedback, to go from this state of brain activity to this state where the prefrontal distribution of the alpha brain waves to be equal from left and right. So actually what we need is to decrease the amplitude of the alpha waves in the left prefrontal region and equalize this with the right. How we can do that? By rewarding low amplitudes, or by comparing, having the ratio of left divided by right alpha amplitude and targeting the unity, for example, so as to be equal, or to take the subtraction left minus right, and then rewarding when it's close to zero. So these two brain waves, the left and the right, to be on the same scale. Now for ADHD, I wish I could have you a live, let's say, video, sorry, a live demonstration, but this was not possible. So what I can do, I can show you something that I built before many years, and it's for kids with attention deficit and hyperactivity disorder. Let me share you my my video. It's a video that I made. This is the media mind. So you don't hear any sound because the sound is in Greek. So I'm going to translate that and move a bit forward. So actually what we did, I wanted an EEG headset, very cheap like this one, the Neurosky, which actually now costs no more than 100 euros. And I make this program, which actually what you can see here, it's a black screen when a video is loaded. And here, a scale from 0 to 100, which measures the attention. 0, it's no attention, 100, it's full attention. If now it tries to connect and calibrates to my brain, and here you can see the current level of attention, 64%, 56%, and so on. And here it's what we ask from the subject, the minimum attention to be. So now I'm loading a video. Here, for example, it can be used like an animation, a cartoon, or something like that for the kids. So here there is a green line, which is the minimum level of attention. So here you can see the green line. If the attention is higher than the asked attention, then the video plays normally. While if the attention is lower from the desired level, the video pauses. So in order for the kid to see the video and make this continuum, the kid should, the brain actually, not the kid intentionally, should change the attentional levels. And using this training repeatedly, we saw, unfortunately not in a systematic way, that kids suffering from attention disorders were benefit a lot. And here you can see that the trainer can adapt, let's say, the threshold, and this is one of the first version. In the last version that I have right now, I have used also an algorithm for the automatic adaptation of the threshold so as to maximize the efficiency of the training. So as someone, a psychologist or a practitioner, to use it without knowing where to put the threshold in order to achieve maximum, let's say, results. So this was the video. Let me close it. One moment. Escape. I will. No, we don't want this lady. So. Actually, this was my presentation. This is the last slide that I thank you very much for your attention. I am let's say, surprisingly exactly inside my time limits. It's 30 minutes from my start. So I think that now, I don't know if we'll have some questions from YouTube that we are, let's say, screening. Let me check. No, comments are off. Okay. Now I think that I will pass to Mr. Dikeos in order to discuss about the current programs we have in City College and about the program and about the City College in general. Grigori.
Thank you. Can you all hear me? You can. Okay. Let me upload my presentation. Okay. Now, first of all, I would like to wholeheartedly thank Professor Klados for such an inspiring presentation. Whenever I hear him or his colleagues at the university speaking of such issues, I am always really impressed, and I realize that we know so much nowadays, and we can help people so much nowadays, that all this makes sense. We are the University of York Eurocampus City College, and I will share with you a few things. Hold on, let me go to full screen. Okay. I'm sure many of you think that what should I do? How can I develop myself? How can I go to a university? In my experience, I always tell people that before you choose a university to study, you need to consider seriously several factors. First of all, the reputation of the university, which is directly connected with the quality of a program, and in a result, the career enhancing opportunities. In other words, if one holds a degree from a top university, this means a lot for him. A good university degree is like a professional passport for a career. The next thing you need to consider before choosing a university is either the tuition fees or the scholarships that are available. It is true that very good universities are also very expensive universities. So we need to consider whether we can afford to pay for such, studies. Then, if I move away the living expenses in the place where I will move, my traveling expenses, I cannot go to the United States on my bicycle, you realize that. The student learning experience, and of course, the opportunities for networking. Only if you consider all these factors will you be able to make the right choice for you. Now, sorry, okay. Now, we're talking about a good university. When I was young and I attended university, the purpose of being at university was to listen to a professor, probably make some notes, study at the end of the semester of the academic year, take exams and prove to the professor that we had studied his or her material. Things have nowadays changed completely. No serious university emphasizes on just reproducing or transferring knowledge. A good university is much more than that. Let's now compare with what we have said with our university, University of York, and see how our university is directly connected to what we have discussed. It is a British university, and in the UK rankings, it is among the very best universities. You can see the ranking of the university in various ranking organizations. Mind you, there are about 180 universities in the United Kingdom, so being among the top is always a great honor. And if we look at the world rankings, again, University of York ranks scores very highly among the thousands and thousands of universities worldwide. Let's see a few of the University of York distinctions. It is a member of the Russell Group. The Russell Group is the group of the elite universities, and only 24 universities belong to that. It is number one for learning opportunities, number two for the quality of teaching, 6 Queen's Anniversary Prizes as the most advanced progressive university in the United Kingdom. In regards to the excellence in teaching, it has been awarded gold, and the research excellence framework, which came out actually 3 weeks ago, ranks University of York as number 10 for the impact of research, and it is number 1 in linguistics and among the 10 best in psychology, computers, and business studies. What is the Europe Campus City College? It's the first European campus of the British University, offering exclusively British University, same values with the University of York Common Good, offering programs approved by the university, and all our university degrees are awarded by the University of York. And our goal is to look into the current and future needs and then prepare programs that will develop the critical skills and analytical abilities of our students by offering up-to-date knowledge and by cultivating ethical behavior. Now, City College University of York Europe Campus has joined forces with the National Bulgarian University, the largest private university in Bulgaria, and we are offering together certain number of programs. For the simplicity of the presentation today, we will only focus on what is related to Professor Klados' presentation, i.e. master's programs in neuropsychology. So in Sofia, we are offering the program of Master of Arts in Clinical Neuropsychology. This is a 3-year program. Classes are held 2 weekends per month. 1 weekend, the professors from City College University of York Eurocampus travel locally to Sofia and teach. And in the next weekend in the month, our colleagues from the New Bulgarian University teach. All the program is taught in English. In order to be admitted, you need to have a bachelor's degree in psychology or any other health-related or biomedical disciplines. In other words, if your first degree is in business, you cannot join this program. When students graduate from this program, they receive 2 degrees. The MA in Clinical Neuropsychology degree, master's degree from the University of York, and a master's degree from the New Bulgarian University after fulfilling the NBU requirements. A second program we are offering in Sofia is the Master of Science in Cognitive Neuropsychology. The idea and the difference between the first one I already mentioned is a very simple difference. Both these programs have practically the same courses, but the first one, instead of concluding with a dissertation, it concludes with practice, whereas this one, the cognitive neuropsychology, does not involve practice in an environment, professional environment, but it concludes by writing a dissertation. Of course, in both programs, there are a lot of projects, case studies, simulations, so it is not a theoretical program in that sense, but it is fully practically applied. Now, again, in Thessaloniki, we have a larger number of master's programs in case somebody is interested. Apart from the MSc in Cognitive Neuropsychology and the MA in Clinical Neuropsychology, we have a MSc in Counseling Psychology, an MA in Counseling Psychology with a practicum, an MSc in Counseling and Psychotherapy, and an MA in Clinical Psychology, all right? These are 2-3 pictures for a graduation ceremony. I always put them there so people can start dreaming of themselves being among graduating students. This is one group of one graduating year students, enjoying that they have completed their studies, fully proud. And this is the graduation hall where the university holds the graduation ceremony. If you want more information, You have nothing else to do but go on the website, find contact details. You can contact the New Bulgarian University. You can contact our offices in Sofia. You can contact me. You can contact City College, University of York Europe campus. And thank you very much for your attention. And this is it for me. Ivo.
Thank you very much for presenting the upcoming programs that we are offering at the moment, and we are really looking forward for people who are enthusiastic to study neuropsychology at NBU. Actually, this kind of program is the first and unique program for Bulgaria. And I'm really happy that New Bulgarian University has the opportunity to collaborate with University of York and City College to prepare this program, because I think we didn't have the force by ourselves to prepare such a good program, but with joint forces we will be. This is really strong program. There is only one thing that I wanted to add. Actually, both programs are with the duration of 2 years, because you said that the clinical neuropsychology is 3 years long, but actually it's also 2 years. That's the only point. So anyone who is interested, you can contact me directly or the office of City College in Sofia, or you can search on the website. The full list of classes is on the NBU website, so you can see that. Thank you once again very much.
Thank
All
you.
the very best. Thank you.
Have a nice afternoon.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.